Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dark Tower movie review slash discussion. I'm Tim Meyer. I'm joined by my two co-authors of the post-apocalyptic SUNFALL series, available on Amazon.com. I got Chad and Pete. Guys, how you doing?
Great.
You
Excited
look,
to be here.
you look like you're excited. Very excited. Pete, how are you doing?
Mediocre at best.
Oh, man. And with us, we have author Jason Brand. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I didn't realize you guys had all written stuff together. I'm like fifth wheeling it hardcore.
Oh, yeah. We have a post-apocalyptic series that we wrote together, and we're all united by our love for the Dark Tower. So that's actually kind of how we all met. We're talking about Dark Tower stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's true.
It is true.
It's like really romantic.
It is. I'm getting sentimental. All right. So I figured to start us off, we could each give a quick non-spoiler review of the movie without going into too much detail. And then afterwards, we'll really deep dive in and talk about what we liked, what we didn't like about the movie. So I'll go first. I'm going to say I didn't hate it. It wasn't a great movie, but it wasn't the worst movie I ever saw. I was going into it with literally no expectations because, the day before the movie came out, there was a lot of negative reviews, and I was expecting to kind of hate it. So maybe that's kind of what made me not hate it as much as I thought I would. But yeah, I mean, it has issues, but really it was a good summer blockbuster popcorn flick that I actually kind of enjoyed after thinking about it for 2 days. So Jason, I know you're waiting to tear this apart, so why don't you go next?
I guess my review of this could be best summed up by the fact that I was struggling on the way home not to drive my car off an overpass.
Oh, jeez.
I hated this movie on every single level.
Oh, my God.
I want you guys to be able to give your opinions quick, too, so I won't go into too much. But as an adaptation of the series, it infuriated me. As a movie not connected to anything, I thought it was the worst movie I've seen in the theaters in a long time. This is honestly the first time I ever was leaving the theater and I thought about asking for my money back, legitimately. And I saw Transformers 2 in the theater. I saw Battlefield Earth in the theater. So I was not happy when it ended. I'll put it that way. It was the first time my wife ever shushed me in the theater because I was starting to get very agitated, apparently. I didn't realize it.
That's awesome. Chad, what do you think?
So what, I'm just giving you my feelings on it?
Yeah, got it. First initial reaction to the movie.
Actually, my first initial reaction was like, let me give it a chance. Let it marinate. And that it's like technically a continuation or a sequel, or however they wanted to phrase it, rather than like a direct adaptation. And I let it sit, and I hated it even more. So it stinks.
Wow, that's pretty terrible. Pete, what about you? What did you think of it?
I've lost the ability to think after watching it. Everything I knew and loved and believed is either dead to me or I was wrong. And I have no better way of expressing myself than that, other than to say on the very best day, it's a D- movie, generally speaking. And I love the cast of the movie, and I'm saying that.
Okay. So, all right. So you guys are pretty much, you hate this movie. It's terrible. It's an adaptation of a book series that has 8 books, let's call it 8 books, and they're each about that thick on average. Knowing that, does that change your perspective of it? Take that out of it. The Dark Tower movie itself, do you think they did a good job with the story of it, or do you think it was just a terrible, terrible story that had plot holes and just not very good?
Who are you asking?
Anybody.
I don't know what they were trying to do with the story. I think that's the biggest problem. I don't think the people who made the movie knew what they were trying to do with the story. And I'll preface it with this. I had, in my understanding of what this movie was about, I presumed that this movie was going to lead to a Tolkien-esque cinematic experience where we'd have not all 7 books translated to film, and not even to the same quality of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings series, but we were going to be in that same vein. There was going to be a serious undertone. There was going to be good acting and good dialogue and good plot. And on the best day, this movie has good acting trying to disguise the deficient plot, the deficient dialogue, and the hodgepodge of a story that it tries to take by pulling from different aspects of the book. I don't know or can even figure out what anybody was thinking when they read the script and go, yeah, that makes sense, because none of it made any sense. Not a single bit of it.
Okay. Jason, what about you?
We can go now. I'm done.
Yeah, you're done.
I think you just about summed it up. I only think I can follow this story somewhat because I'd read the books, and a lot of the crap they shoehorned in there, I understood what it was because I'd read the books. I can't imagine showing this to someone with no knowledge of it and trying to get them to follow it. It just jumped all over the place. When they said about his gun being made from Excalibur, if I hadn't read the books, I'd be like, what in the fuck is this? Like, what? This makes no sense. Like, the wormhole things didn't make sense. Matthew McConaughey is using orbs and shit they never explained. Like, what is happening here? What was the thing in the house? I think it was like a ghost protector of the first tunnel portal thing he finds.
The demon door?
Yeah, something like that. The people beside us were like, what is this? What's happening? They had no clue what was going on.
That was actually like the worst part of the movie for me, because I think it's in the third book when they draw Jake out. There is a demon protecting that doorway.
Yeah.
But the way they did it, it kind of looked like cheap Harry Potter CGI type thing, and that was pretty awful. But
exactly, like I really feel like I understood more of what was happening because I'd read the books. So I can't even imagine having no concept of what was happening and trying to follow that crap.
It's interesting you say that, because my wife had never read the books before, and she really liked it. She thought it was pretty good, and I've actually heard that reaction. Yeah, maybe there's something wrong with her. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
You said with me.
Marry you.
Yeah, that's true. So, and I've read articles written by people who have no knowledge of the series, and they seem to kind of like it. They kind of think it's just like a popcorny action flick. So it's weird that you said that, but I think knowing that stuff, knowing what that is kind of like, I can see how you could think like that, because like an orb, like you wouldn't really think anything of him using the orbs for whatever he was using them for at the time, and just kind of accepting that as someone who hasn't read the book. As just an orb, and just is what it is without any further knowledge to it. So, Chad, what about you?
I was under the impression that it was going to be, like a sequel, because after the way the 7th book ends, we know it can be like there are many iterations and everything. So I was kind of okay with them taking liberties and it being a little bit different, but I thought it was going to be kind of like Pete said, where it was the first of maybe a series, and there was talks at one point of incorporating a TV series and then maybe movies again. So it's like the first time I saw Fellowship of the Ring, I didn't know that there was going to be, I had no idea that there was going to be 2 more movies, and I was waiting for them to get the volcano. This is like, I was not anticipating there to be an end to this. I thought it was going to be a step along the way. So to me, it felt like, like in like Super Mario Brothers, when you warp ahead worlds, and it's like we were sampling from like all the different books. So it felt like an adaptation, but terribly. And, like we were talking about earlier, as far as on its own, the movie was bad too. Like I love the cast, I love the actors, but I felt like, I don't know. I thought Matthew McConaughey as the Man in Black, he came across as like very campy. And I mean, from his costume to his dialogue, and I was just like, this doesn't feel like any of the characters the way that they were written. You know, like I thought from if it's going to be a standalone, it failed. If it's going to be an adaptation, it failed, and it was just, you know, terrible on every level.
All right then. So we have one watcher. His name's Mike. He says Jason brings up a good point. You would have to have some knowledge of the book if they didn't explain certain things in the movie, and that's not good. Yeah, I mean, there is some weird stuff in there that like just shouldn't have probably been in there, or should have been explained a little bit better. The running time, I think, was probably the worst thing they did, cutting it down to 90 minutes. You could have easily made it like an extra hour long and really, you know, made it a lot better that way. I know Pete and I were talking off the air about the relationships between the characters, specifically Roland and Jake, how, you know, when they first get together, Roland's pretty much ready to blow his head off. And then like 2 seconds later, he's like, oh, I'm going to protect you and save you and take you with me on this journey. And there was really seconds went by. That's kind of like what I found not good about the movie. It felt more like a 90-minute music video than it did a blockbuster film. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think the running time, Jason, do you think the running time would have been better?
I agree with you 100% that when I saw the running time before I saw it, I couldn't even understand how that could be done, even to just adapt, say, The Gunslinger, which is probably the simplest story of all the books, would take more than 90 minutes. But by the time I got about 75 minutes in, I was saying prayers to everyone who would listen that this movie, thanking them that this movie is only 90 minutes. Because I was actually bored out of my mind. For a movie that was paced so quickly, I was bored. I think because I didn't give a shit what happened to anybody. Like, I just didn't care.
That's interesting. Pete?
I have to agree, and you and I had that conversation shortly after the movie. 95 minutes makes no sense for this movie, even if it's not going to be a direct adaptation of the Gunslinger novel. What it has done is handicap the ability for storytelling and world building, and to allow the audience to have an appreciation for the characters and the characters to build relationships. Again, we pointed out that when Roland meets Jake, it's, all right, you're on your own, see you later, don't get lost on your way back. 3 seconds later, he shows him a picture of one of his dreams, and now they're best buds. They're like Yogi and Boo Boo off to steal a picnic basket. None of this makes any sense. None of this makes any sense. I mean, if that's all it takes, why didn't that happen in the first novel? I'm confused. And I don't understand how someone thought 95 minutes made sense. And again, I think that goes back to my original point. I'm not sure that the producer and the writers and the director really had a cohesive understanding of what they wanted to do with this movie. And I think that's going to be the theme of my input throughout this conversation.
Okay, so again, they had 7 books to kind of draw from. If someone were to approach you guys to do this project, like, how would you guys do it differently? Because I thought if someone came to me and asked me to put together a Dark Tower movie using all 7 books or a large portion of them, I thought they did a pretty good job kind of keeping the storyline cohesive and using a lot of the elements from each book. Like, I like the idea that they used the like the kids with the shine, which they took from the Wolves of the Kala, and kind of mixed it with the Breakers and did that whole storyline. You guys just seem to not like any of that either, or was there any redeemable qualities of this movie to you?
Yes, very few, but there is one. And it's Idris Elba's portrayal of Roland is, in my opinion, it's excellent. And again, Roland is he's a man of few words as he comes across in the Gunslinger and as well as the rest of the series and the books. But we can't have that kind of, for this movie, we couldn't have a hero with few words and little dialogue, I think. So the dialogue that was given to him was more than I expected. It was well done. And the parts where it was intended to be comedic, I thought he did a good job. But to go back to your original point, to say that, you know, if you had to do it in one movie, okay, yeah, if I had to take all 7 books and put it into 1 half-hour movie, then that's passable. But the reality of it is, to do it correctly, to make it enjoyable, you can't do it. And I think this proved it. I think this movie proves that you can't do that.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I don't know. I feel like this movie is getting a lot of hatred because of what it isn't rather than kind of what it is. I don't know. Like, to me, it's just like a fun popcorn flick. I don't know. For me, nothing really bothered. There's just some things that bother me. Like I said, the demon door was kind of stupid. Chad was right. Kind of like Matthew McConaughey with his weird dialogue, and the way he acted was kind of not how I envisioned Walter to act. But in terms of the plot, like, I was interested in it. I was watching it, and I don't know. I really enjoyed the way they mixed all those books together, and also all the Stephen King references were, I don't know, tickled me in a certain way. What about you guys? Did you
Chad
like
hasn't said anything in a while. I'm going to give him a chance before I go another rant.
Oh, God.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, the other Chad we're talking to.
Shut the fuck up. God, I hate you so much. Yeah, I just so again, if you operate under the assumption that this is going to be like the first of a few, I mean, I don't know. Did I miss the memo that this was going to be 7, 8, whatever books worth of story adapted, continued into one?
Yeah, you missed that memo because
that's fine. But then, like, so and a friend of mine that I was talking about it brought up a good point. Like, there isn't this huge fan base for Dark Tower. You know, there's a lot of Dark Tower readers and Stephen King fans, but like, as compared to like something like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, like, right? I think we can agree that the fan base was huge for those things. So the undertaking for adapting those books was taken a lot more seriously. But still, if this is going to be your first and only chance to like possibly bring people into this world, like, this is what you chose. Like you said, people are evaluating for what it isn't rather than what it is, but like, you had one chance, and a 95-minute, like, we'll take from this, we'll take from this, we'll take from this, and we'll make it sort of an adaptation, sort of a continuation, not really sure which one we want to do, and then have the dialogue and the screenplay come out the way it did. Like, I guess, like, I couldn't get lost in it because I was just evaluating it the whole time, which is, my own fault, and I do that with adaptations from books and movies a lot. But I mean, I feel like if they gave it an extra 45 minutes or an hour, there was a chance to at least substantiate that, like to make it a little bit, denser as far as how much they skipped all over the place and took from this and took from that. At least if they developed it a little bit more, it would have been a little bit, easier. Because, like Jason said, I mean, if you didn't know anything about this, like, especially, I didn't think about that, the orbs, like, where did that come from? Even the way they start referring to the Man in Black as Walter, it's like, we know him as Walter O'Dim and, all the different names that he has. But if nobody had known that, I would have been like, wait a minute, who's Walter? I don't know. Like, I don't think you could have, I think it's tough to make that distinction between what it is and what it should have been for people who it was aimed for, which is Dark Tower fans. So for the, whatever, 25% of people that never read those books and then saw it and liked it, miracles happen.
Jason,
was your question, what would I have done if I was adapting this? Is that what it was?
Yeah, like, if someone kind of came to you and was like, hey, there's 7 books, we want to touch on each one and put it into one whole movie, do you think you could have come up with a better story than what they had? Or was there any redeemable?
Yeah, I mean, I could have acted like a monkey and flung some shit at the wall and the story would have made more sense than what they did. Like, what would I have done differently? Everything. I felt like this movie was even cast poorly. Like, even going beyond what everyone shits themselves over with him being black. He's too young, he's too good looking, and he's too muscular. And the wardrobe they put him in was too nice. And the color palette of the movie was too bright. Like, this is the gunslinger. This should have been, I would have started it with more of a Western, like a post-apocalyptic looking Western. And as the movie goes on, you get into more of the weird stuff, the magic, more of the seeing that, is this world our world or is this something else? Like, I would have built it that way. I would have honestly changed everything. Like, everything. What they made the Man in Black, he was supposed to be scary, but it was cheeseball. It was goofy. I'm looking at the sexiest man alive, like, telling people to kill themselves, but I don't actually see them kill themselves because this dumbass movie's PG-13 instead of R. Like, What would I have done differently? Everything.
Oh my God.
I didn't understand most of their motivations, to be honest with you. And that's even changing the fact that the most interesting character in the movie is Idris Elba's gunslinger, but he's not the main character. The little kid is the main character of this movie. Like, even that I would have changed.
I like that changed how they did that. I thought the actor they cast. I liked all the actors except for Matthew McConaughey. I think he kind of was too Matthew McConaughey-ish. But I like the idea that the kid was the main character, and we were kind of watching it through his eyes and experiencing his journey. I thought that actually kind of lent to the charm of the film. Although it was kind of too campy, like you guys mentioned, especially with, McConaughey. I also didn't like how Walter was too powerful. Like, I don't remember him ever being.
What were his powers in this? Can somebody explain to me what the limits of his powers were?
There really was no limits, which was kind of like weird and crazy.
He was all of the X-Men rolled into one.
It kind of was. Yeah. So I didn't like that, but I actually liked the whole Jake thing and the whole New York aspect with him almost being abducted by Walter through the corporation.
You know what? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
I just
go ahead.
want a point you're making about Jake being the main character at the beginning. I think that would have been much more interesting had they followed what happened in The Gunslinger and killed him at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That would have, at least when people left the theater, it would have been something memorable. And maybe you'd have been looking for what's going to happen now. This is crazy. Instead, it was like, I don't know. The movie ended like a wet fart to me. When he bounces the bullet off the other bullet, like, what?
I don't know. I thought that was actually kind of cool.
Oh man, we have very different tastes.
Clearly. All right. So what else, guys? What else? What other bad stuff happened in this that you hate and wanted to shred apart?
I'll let someone else go.
What's the next move? I mean, is that it?
I hope so.
Apparently, they're making like a television series. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true.
How?
Yeah, exactly. You can't now.
I have that answer.
The problem with this. It's
How?
over.
Well, now they could get to the tower.
I mean, the villain is dead, and they saved the tower. So what?
You have the crimson.
It's it. It's like, that's the thing. Like, this iteration, again, if we're looking at this as a continuation instead of a direct adaptation, which is, you can almost make a pass for. It's as if every single stroke of luck that Roland didn't have in the books, he had in this, and like skipped a dozen steps to get there faster. Which is fine if you want to make this one of the iterations, but that's it. Then it's over. Then you have to start over with another iteration. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but you could still do the whole Crimson King and inside, the tower and everything, and you could do like pretty much everything that wasn't in the movie. You could do in a television series.
I guess it just seemed like they blew their chance to do that.
I feel like they were just trying to make a movie like a mass people would enjoy, like a popcorn flick, and kind of to test the waters to see if there is interest for a series. Like, I feel like that's kind of what they're.
But I think they could have done that, and like Jason said, just adapted the Gunslinger, and you would have had, remember the shootout in that town when he, kills however many people. I mean, there were and then the slow mutants in the tunnel. Like, there would have been plenty of action in that, and then Jake dies at the end, and then people are sucked in. So it's when you're so much about the decision to go the way they did with this.
So is that why you? Because again, I feel like a lot of the hate is for stuff that they didn't do. So is that why you guys didn't like it? Is because they could have done all this other stuff, or was it just a shitty movie?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, my answer is yes.
Yes.
Well, let me jump in here for a minute, because what they're doing with the TV show that I've read and I believe to be somewhat accurate is they're going to adapt the backstory that's discussed in Wizard and Glass, Roland's childhood and becoming of a gunslinger, all the way up through the Battle of Jericho and all the other events in the book discussed in book 4, Wizard and Glass. That's the premise for the TV series, and that's going to be the premise for the series. And to the point of, making a popcorn flick and doing all these things and testing the waters, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because if they wanted to know if there was interest in a TV series for the books, they would have just made the TV show. They didn't make a movie for Game of Thrones and a shitty one at that and say, okay, now this will help test the market. You don't put out a piece of shit and go, this will test the market to see if we do more work. No, you go in, you make a pilot, and if the pilot is terrible or doesn't go anywhere, or you even make a whole season, a short season of the TV show, and that doesn't go anywhere, then you stop. But you don't go and make a large budget movie. I think this had $68 million attached to it. You don't spend $68 million on, maybe this will generate more attention for something to a lesser extent. That makes no sense. I stand by the original point. They had no idea what they were doing. And if they wanted to make a quick popcorn flick, I second or third the comments about just adapting The Gunslinger. It would have been a simpler story and it saved everybody a lot of time. It'd probably been cheaper, because it's very straightforward.
In the comments, Mike says IMDb shows The Gunslinger's in production, but there's no other details given. So whatever that ends up meaning, because we all know how stuff can. Obviously, if this movie tanks, I don't think they would invest in making a movie. That would be kind of a poor business decision, I would think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
honestly, the only way I can explain the thought process on this, as best I can figure, is that Sony made this movie, and they seem to make every piece of crap ever. These are the people who made Ghostbusters and just ruined that franchise last year. They make every Adam Sandler movie under the sun. I don't think they know what they're doing, but I don't know.
I agree. Sony does make some terrible movies. So
can we quickly mention how bad some of the special effects were? Did it not have enough money, or were they trying to do too much? I mean, that fight at the end, I thought looked really, really cheesy. Really cheesy.
Some of them did. I got, we mentioned the Demon Door before and how weird that was. But going back to when they were having production issues, I don't know if you guys recalled that. The movie was supposed to come out in February and it got pushed back to August because apparently maybe they didn't have enough money. I don't know the details. But did you guys see the trailer that leaked a week before the movie was actually supposed to come out, and it wasn't finished? They still had green screen in the background and all this weird stuff. Did you guys see that?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I showed it to you. So I think they just had a lot of production issues too. I think that might have contributed to some of that lack of special effects, because the budget was only $60 million, and I don't know, most big budget summer blockbusters are around 200 million, around there. So I think, yeah, you're right. They didn't look good, especially that Demon Door. That looked terrible. That looked like Harry Potter.
What about the demon that he shoots with the guns, the big red wall? That looked beautiful.
Oh, yeah. What was that, by the way? Was that supposed to be something?
I don't know.
That was the thing from Doom. At the end of Doom, that's what you thought.
There was that, and then the monster that comes out of the shadows and stabs him and almost cuts his fingers off. I was hoping they were going to go that direction. Did you guys see that, where almost had his fingers? And I was like, oh, they're going to cut his fingers off, and they didn't. He got stabbed in the chest instead.
There were some cool little references in there to stuff like that I did appreciate, but I like the effect too, where he falls out the window with what's his name, Jackie Earl Haley or whatever his name is, and they fall down and they somehow fall through the window of the bus and then come out the door. I'm like, is this for real? This is like Sharknado.
Yeah, there were some pretty bad effects, but now that you mentioned it, all the references to Stephen King works, I thought was pretty fantastic. Even if the movie wasn't a good movie, I don't know, I enjoyed all the Shining references. There was a Cujo reference, which I didn't catch the first time around. I don't know, did you guys catch the Cujo reference?
Cujo.
No,
I didn't.
I heard about it, but
there was apparently a quick scene when they're walking down the street with a woman holding, I guess, her son's hand and walking a Saint Bernard, and it was supposed to be a Cujo reference. I don't know. I thought it was cool. 1408 got referenced in there, which is a weird one. I don't know I don't know why they decided to reference that. I didn't know 1408 had really anything to do with the Dark Tower.
That's
off the top of my head, I don't remember doing it.
What?
I was just gonna say, I feel like those references are an indication like of how much real like preparation was put into this. Like, I don't know. I mean, did the writers and the director even read the books? Because like they referenced The Shining, Cujo, 1408, all like popular Stephen King movies. It's like they didn't actually, the Stand wasn't referenced, was it? Like Insomnia wasn't referenced.
No.
Those are Stephen King stories that actually connected to the Dark Tower more directly than the ones that they did reference. And, I don't know. I guess for me, I'm generalizing again, but like, it makes sense now when you say it was supposed to come out in February, which is a great time for good movies to come out. And it had a budget of about half of what it should have been for a summer blockbuster and got pushed back to August, which is also what is known as a prime month for summer blockbusters. So like, this was just doomed from the start.
Yeah. But all that said, I still didn't hate it, which is weird. I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me figure out.
Heath and Dead Snow, and we'll use that argument like we do all the time.
Well, Teeth is a great movie.
All the terrible movies that you like.
Who doesn't like Teeth? Come on.
Didn't you just tell Hunter Shea you like Diary of the Dead?
I do like Diary of the Dead. That's also not a terrible movie.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Oh my god. So I guess I like bad movies, guys. I guess that's what the main idea of this.
Admitting to it is the first stage. Now we're gonna get you help.
Oh man. No, I don't know. It was campy. It had plot holes.
And you loved it anyway.
And like, yeah, all that said, I look back on it and I was like, I don't know, I was entertained. I enjoyed watching it. I want to watch it again. I'm debating whether or not to buy it on Blu-ray. Maybe I have a problem. I don't know.
Well, look, you're entitled to have an opinion, as wrong as it may be. You're allowed to have taste, as bad as it may be. And you could spend your money like a fool, as much as you want. But that doesn't mean we're going to agree with you. I don't know.
I know. But no, I don't know. I don't know, guys. I didn't think it was as bad as everybody made it out to be. I think expectations, too, have played a large part of it. Because I was going into it thinking that it was going to be the biggest piece of shit ever. And usually when that happens, I don't end up hating it as much. So maybe my expectations for it were pretty low.
Usually that's the case for me. But when I saw that first trailer, my expectations were just gone. Like when he was loading the gun in the air, like sideways. And I'm like, wow, all right. But there was one thing that was bothering me a little bit. And I'm almost sure I'm remembering it incorrectly. So hopefully you guys can fix this for me. But at the end, when Roland is facing the Dark Phoenix and he's doing all that stuff with the glass and everything, when he shoots the two bullets and ricochets them, I feel like he shoots the first one straight. He waits like 5 seconds and then shoots the ricochet off something and meets it. How does that even get past the basic smell test of physics? Like, shouldn't he have shot the ricochet first and then shot the straight bullet?
It's a fantasy movie, man. I don't know.
I mean, am I just remembering that wrong? Did he? I remember at the time the order, but honestly, my mouth was just open as I was watching it, so I wasn't sure if I was just hating on everything in the movie or if that actually happened.
It's possible. I just remember just kind of taking it for what it is and not questioning it too much. Maybe that's my problem. Maybe I'm just a dumb moviegoer who just doesn't question anything and just accepts what's being fed to me.
Yep.
Do you like the Transformers movies?
No, except for the first one. I kind of like the first one.
Yeah, and that's and we always make fun of me because sometimes I like corny summer blockbusters. Like I like Transformers 3 actually. I mean 2 was dog shit, but and I like the first one, and I've liked plenty of other terrible like Michael Bay movies, but this one and I went with super low expectations too, from the first trailer to like the production problems being pushed back, and I wanted to like it, but and the expectations didn't help me out this time, and normally they do too. And also, I never have high expectations for any Stephen King adaptation. We've gotten lucky with like some of the dramas, and I think I always defend The Mist. I always think that was one of the best, but
That is.
How many really, like, I feel like he's cursed, you know, as far as his adaptations go. They're just not never, but definitely not the majority of the time. Like, they're good the minority of the time.
I would agree with that.
Poor guy. I mean, he puts out great books.
I will admit that my expectations were too high. Again, I thought we were going into, and I missed the memo apparently as well that everyone else circulated, that this was a one-shot culmination of all the books. I thought it was going to be the beginning of a Tolkien-esque trilogy, as I explained before. So that was my expectation. And then when the movie's effectively over after 89 minutes, I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, I'm not ready to be done. In my opinion, we barely got started. And to call that a start, I think we tripped a couple of times along the way. So it didn't make a lot of sense to me. So my expectations were way too high. I had too great a hope, and oh well. I guess the only person I disappointed was myself.
You know, I actually wanted to say about my expectations too, because you guys are making some good points about King adaptations. I like a lot of the adaptations where they change stuff from the books a lot, like The Shining. Hell, I like the Arnold Running Man movie, which has no resemblance to the book at all, you know? So I like stuff like that. I don't mind if they change it because I just want to see a good movie. So I don't know that the changes bothered me so much, or would have bothered me so much in this if I would have felt like it was actually a good movie regardless, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. And like, I purposely didn't reread them recently or anything like that. Not that I would have powered through like all 7 books, but I tried to forget as much as I could so that any changes would have been like welcome and fresh and probably for the better. But it didn't happen.
Yeah, I even thought when they said that this was a sequel to the series, I was like, oh, okay, that actually gives them a lot of liberty to make some changes and do some things, not to just cram everything together.
Right.
I don't know, I liked how it's kind of crammed together. I just think I try to distance myself from the books because I am so familiar with them. I mean, I've read them twice. I'm actually listening to them on audiobook right now, about halfway through Wizard and Glass. So I don't know, I'm pretty close to them, and I kind of just enjoyed it going off and doing its own thing. Like I said, not a perfect movie by any means. We've pointed out pretty much all the issues that it had. But in terms of story, I liked how I don't know, I just liked the whole idea behind it. And like I said, of course, all the references. Idris Elba was great. The kid was great. Matthew McConaughey was a little weird. I liked the family dynamic of it too that they kind of threw in there with Jake. I thought that kind of lent to his character. You know, the book didn't necessarily have that. It did have a little bit of that family aspect, but they definitely made it more entertaining, so you actually cared more about Jake and his journey. I don't know. My opinion.
I'll give you that. I will give you the Jake storyline in that regard, Tim. I think that makes sense. It was actually pretty well done. It was different from the book aspect, but it still paid homage to that. It was still in that same vein. It made it worthwhile. And the more I think about it, it would be difficult to adapt this book series straight to the big screen because there are certain copyright issues later on in the series where they're actually making direct Harry Potter references, etc. So I like the adaptation aspect of it. There are certain things that they changed, like Jake's role in the story and his family dynamic. I thought was good. And I forget that kid's name. Is it Tom Taylor or Tom Arnold or something like that?
I don't think it's Tom Arnold.
I don't know what his name is. Something like that. Tom something. He did a good job.
Yeah.
Whoever that kid is, he did a good job. And maybe his name is Arnold Palmer, and we can all go have an Arnold Palmer after this. I don't know. But the whole point is he did a good job.
I liked how they threw the themes of family in there, especially with the relationship with Jake and his father, and then Roland and his father. Like, they both kind of lost their dads. And that whole parallel, I thought, was kind of a cool twist on it. Even though how Roland's dad died was pretty stupid.
It was lame. Lame.
It was kind of lame. It was just like, that's one thing that pissed me off, I think, the most was Matthew McConaughey's God mode ability, where he just destroyed anybody he wanted to. And did they ever really explain, I might have missed it, did they explain why Roland wasn't susceptible to it?
Yes.
What was that again?
In about 2 sentences, they explained that he had the ability to resist Matthew McConaughey's magic. The source or how that occurs, never explained.
Well,
but
I don't.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They never explained it, right?
No.
Okay.
All they say is that he can resist his magics.
Did they never explain
more than one?
And that wasn't like someone just said it. It's like that was repeated many times.
Magics. Whatever.
Did they ever explain why the Man in Black doesn't kill Roland at the beginning when he kills his father? He just walks away from him.
That's what I mean. Like that was one thing I didn't understand. And they do explain at some point, they're like, oh, he just resists his ability. But they never his magics.
But it doesn't stop him at the end when he's throwing glass and rocks and shit at him. Like, why didn't he just throw trees at him after he killed his father? He just walked away.
That's true. He did. He just was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Peace. Yeah, I don't know. That was weird. That was probably the biggest plot hole that I saw. That and maybe Jake's superpowers at the end. Like he just kind of did
He's a Jedi.
Yeah, he kind of did in the new Star Wars movie. They did that too, kind of where Rey just kind of had magical Jedi powers out of nowhere without any training or abilities whatsoever. So I thought that was kind of weird too. Like all of a sudden he's more powerful than the Man in Black. Like that didn't make a lot of sense to me either. Unless I missed it.
I don't think you missed anything in this movie.
Here's the sad part about all of this. I heard that they went back and added scenes to explain things. Well, what the hell did they explain?
Well, there was like 6 screenwriters on this thing. I think it went
I have more questions.
I think
That's
it went
usually a good sign for a movie too.
Oh yeah, when it's got that's true. And the guy whose screenplay they ended up going with was the same guy who wrote Batman and Robin, I believe.
Yeah,
well, that explains everything.
Goldsmith or whatever.
Yeah, but he also won an Academy Award for what was it? I want to say American Beauty or a movie along the lines of that.
You're right. He has a couple of good ones too. I feel like I'm a little embarrassed to ask this, but in the books, did Jake have that strong of like the shine?
No.
All right, I'm good. I'm not crazy because I'm like, where did this power come from? Where suddenly he's like, the kid from The Shining, and or Ted Brodigan. You know what I mean? Like,
I feel like they try to combine his character with who's the painter? Patrick Dandelo?
No, Patrick Danville.
Danville. Okay. Yeah, I feel like they kind of combined him because he was the one in the books who had like the psychic ability, who was trying to help them, right? In the 7th book.
Yes, he was
from the kind of, but like I think he could draw. He was able to like.
Yeah, so I feel like they might have tried to combine those 2 characters to make it somewhat, I don't know, make sense, which it didn't, which is weird. The whole thing is weird. The whole ending's weird. Maybe I don't like this movie as much as I thought I did.
Finally.
I did like how he destroyed the whole giant structure at the end with one bullet, though, through the gateway thing. He just shot it once and it just explodes. It was like a bad 80s action movie when you shoot the trunk of a car and the car explodes.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I don't know. It was so weird, that part. But even still, I don't know. I have fond memories of it. Maybe it's just because I know it's the only Dark Tower adaptation we'll probably ever get. That'll ever get made.
That doesn't like break your heart?
Not really, because the books are its own thing, and I don't know. I guess I can separate the 2 and be like, the books are one thing. I don't really need a I feel like the books are so well written that I don't need a movie to justify the books. You know what I mean? Like the books are fine.
No, it's just for me. It's like, yeah, I trust me, I can separate them insofar as the movies just never exists again in my head at all. Like it just didn't happen. But I don't know. Like it would have been nice to have something like what was originally planned, which was like a few movies and a few seasons of a TV series. I mean, we could have had something really, really good.
How was this in development for 10 years and this is the best script they came up with?
Yeah, it's crazy. And there's so many good names attached to it early on, right? Like J.J. Abrams had it for a while, and then Ron Howard had it for a while. And I think probably the studio they couldn't work it out with the studio. I feel like the studio probably wanted one thing and they wanted another thing, and then that was kind of it. So that's probably what happened. That's my guess.
I struggle to think that Opie was working on this movie for how long, and this is what they got. Like, honestly, that guy makes good movies most of the time.
Most of the time. Most of the time. Not all the time, though.
No,
Wait,
no, the Da Vinci Code.
We're talking about Ron Howard and how he made the Da Vinci Code, which was a piece of shit.
Okay.
I fell asleep during that.
Yeah, that movie was terrible. That was a bad adaptation.
I mean, it's Citizen Kane compared to this turd.
Oh, I don't know about that.
All right, it's Casablanca. I mean,
It's Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
No.
What I don't understand at the end of the Dark Tower movie is when Roland says to Jake, "Why don't you come hang out with me? Because, well, your family's dead and you have no purpose in living in this world anymore. I could use the help." Use the help for what? You killed Matthew McConaughey's guy, and the Crimson King is nowhere to be found other than a graffiti on the wall. So what does he need help for? Just leave the kid to be an orphan. None of this makes any sense to me. I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, that was
become a dad.
That's a good question.
That is a good question. I was upset with the serious lack of Billy Bumblers in this movie.
Can you imagine how terrible that would have looked in this movie? It would have been a dog with like a prosthetic on.
It would have been like a dumpster raccoon, just let loose.
One of those big Alabama raccoons that they have down there.
I did have two things I want to bring up, and then I'm done ranting, I promise.
Sure.
Apparently, at the end, after the credits roll, you heard whistling when the screen went black, and that was to signify that the man in black is not dead.
Oh, really?
But did he ever whistle during the movie?
No, but he does in the books, right? Or in the stand. I think when he's Randall Flagg. Yeah, he whistles like all the time in the stand. Yeah.
So again, if you're just watching this movie without having read any Stephen King books, that would make absolutely no sense to you and you wouldn't get the reference.
Yeah, but you also probably wouldn't stay to the end of the credits.
I do sometimes. My other thing was the scene that my wife had to shush me when I didn't realize I was ranting out loud is just from a writing point of view, it drove me insane that he's teaching the kid how to shoot the guns and the kid's not good, whatever. He finally hits one. And then at the end of the scene, Roland says, "These weapons are for me. You have your mind," or something like that. Like, then why in God's name do we just have to watch this scene?
Because
he's never going to shoot the guns. Like, this movie's only 90 minutes, and 5 of them were this worthless crap that's going to have nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. Here, use this gun. Use this gun. All right, never mind. It's only for me. Don't use it. What the hell is that?
They could have used that 2 minutes of film for something else.
I mean, give the kid a damn slingshot then. Make him Bart Simpson or Dennis the Menace. At least make him fun. He's got the shine. Ooh.
Oh my God.
You're also giving me a gun with like an 18-inch barrel. He's going to eat that thing the second he shoots it. Because he's like 9.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, all right. So there's some poor decisions on the script part. But again, the guy wrote Batman and Robin. I mean,
yes, that explains everything to me.
This felt like about the same quality to me.
I think it's a little bit better.
How come we get costumes with nipples then? Like, what's going on here?
That was the guy who directed Batman and Robin who made that decision, not the writer.
At least he didn't have a gunslinger credit card in this.
when he's in the hospital. Well, he kind of did, right? He had like the gunslinger coin that he gave the nurse when he was checking out.
Mid-World Bank.
Yeah. Oh,
what should we watch?
All right, guys. Well, we're almost at an hour. Do you have any final closing comments?
Don't watch this movie.
Stephen King needs to start selling his rights for more than $1.
Peter?
Read only the books and pretend that a movie never came to this world.
Oh my God. You guys are terrible people. I didn't love it.
Terrible? You're terrible.
I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's not the worst movie in the world. It's not great. But it's the only Dark Tower adaptation you're probably going to get. So just watch it once. I won't, though, because I'm going to buy it on Blu-ray. That's me.
Wait. They've currently made $27.2 million on this movie. That'll jump it all the way up to 27.20025.
But you know what, though? August is the worst time to release a movie because everybody and their mother is on vacation at some point during August, especially people with families. So PG-13 movies do terrible in August. Like, why even bother releasing a movie in August?
Here's another thing. If you have a family, don't waste their time taking them to this movie. Make them read. Take them anywhere but to the movie theater.
Well, that I agree with, because reading is better anyway.
Tim, I think you just summed it up when you said, why even bother? That could be applied to every step of this process.
Well, I don't agree with that, but just when they release the movie, no August movies. They should just close down the movies in August, not have anything come out, because nobody goes to the movies in August.
There is an alternative. They could just close down Sony Cinema. Just don't let Sony make any more movies. There was a point earlier. It's a good point then. It's a good point now. Bad Sony. Bad.
So all right. So out of 10 stars, what would you give this movie? Real quick. Pete.
2 3/4.
Jason.
3 or 4.
Oh, okay. Chad.
-2.
What?
Chad has created a black hole. This movie is a black hole to Chad.
I'm gonna go. Before we had this conversation, I probably would have said 6, but now I'm thinking more 5.5.
Oh wow, big adjustment.
That's really generous.
It is pretty generous, but I don't know. I like bad movies apparently, so fuck me.
Why don't you go watch The Happening after this? Or Indiana Jones 4. I hear there's a 4th one.
Indiana Jones is terrible. The Happening also not that bad.
What?
Oh god, yeah, this you did it, Pete. You did this. You can deal
What?
with it. I'm
The
not
killer
gonna-
trees?
I'm gonna go because I'm gonna get.
I'm going too. I'm not taking responsibility for this.
You brought it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, we're
And
gonna.
I gotta get to sleep at some point tonight, but I'll just be too full of rage if we keep talking about this.
Yeah, we've had full podcast episodes on that argument. True story.
How?
I'm watching the Mutant Chronicles. I'm out of here.
Yeah, this is coming from the guy who likes the Mutant Chronicles. What was that?
At least the story made sense. At least the story made sense.
Barely. That was
Hey,
that was a fucking terrible movie, Pete.
The trees made the wind blow, all right?
It could happen. It did. It happened. It happened. It wasn't happening. It happened.
Oh my god.
All right. So we're not going to talk about The Happening. That's another night. We can have a Happening podcast.
No, it will not be happening. That's
Yeah,
the
I'll
thing.
be busy. I'm gonna be busy that night.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for stopping by. I had fun, and I hope we won't have to do this for the Dark Tower too.
That isn't happening.
Agreed.
That is not happening. All right. Bye.
Bye.